Ethereum is starting to look quite interesting. After being in a downtrend for a very long time and creating these lower and lower highs, we have to some extent stopped doing that. To some extent, not perfectly, but we are in the process. This is the last sort of swing high, I would argue. It's not confirmed yet because we haven't slid to the downside, but it's starting to look at it. And we'll also look at Bitcoin in a minute to explain how things are changing. But a few things have happened, right? And what's interesting here that at least since this will be March 11, so for the last 58 days, the price has stopped trading lower. In fact, it's trading sideways. And this is interesting because this could potentially mark the beginning of a push to the upside. What's also interesting is that the RSI is above the 50 level. Somewhere between 50 and overbought, we're usually in an uptrend. And when we are below 50, and trapped between oversold and 50, we're usually in a downtrend, as you can see here. And that obviously has changed. Now we have, of course, some really important hurdles. So we do have this high here and sort of these levels here to overtake. But sometimes, with the help of what's happening in the world, we can take positions. Okay, so we got some news that the Chinese and US government officials are speaking, and that obviously boosted the prices. We also have this task force. So Trump established the President's Working Group on Digital Assets on January 23rd. And they have 180 days to propose changes. And the deadline for that is July 22nd. So we're not that far away of the deadline for that. So hopefully we're going to get some movement there soon. What's also interesting is that with China and the US talking, some of the big hurdles that probably preoccupy the government would now be moving, right? And that could potentially give a bit of possibility of changing the narrative now, maybe focusing on something else. We also know that the US government is looking to cut taxes, and the Republicans are targeting a big new legislation, and that should also happen on July 4th. So we have a few things happening, and we'll probably get more and more details about this bill as we move towards July. But obviously, if we wait until the actual bill is out, it's usually too late. People would have already traded on the back of that news. So with that in mind, I think it's time to potentially position for a bullish move here. I haven't been bullish in Ethereum for a very long time. But yeah, we're trading sideways. Been trading sideways for 13 days, and we have now created this mini rectangle. And the way these rectangles work is that we can usually work on a breakout. So what I decided to do is I decided to ignore this and just focus on this thing here and this here. But what we need to focus on, if taking a breakout here, is that we would like to see a breakout happening across other markets as well, or at least stocks. So something like that telling us we could push to the upside, because that would strengthen the breakout here, or the probability of success. So here, from just a risk to reward ratio, say if we would break out today, then we would risk 1.87% to make 6.32. That's your risk reward ratio of 3.38. But what's interesting here, if you've been following my videos for a while, is that if this is indeed where we bottom out, then we would naturally go towards the next major resistance level, which is here. So that's a 13% move, which is not, it's not a lot really. So then your risk reward ratio becomes 7.15. What's also interesting is that if you look at Bitcoin, so Bitcoin has also formed something very similar. So if you look here at the 1 hour chart, we have a mini rectangle here as well. So if Bitcoin, for example, would like to break above these highs, and you see the same thing happening in Ethereum, then you have the possibility that we could push to the upside. What's quite interesting here as well for Bitcoin in particular is that if we trigger this, we might be able to overtake 99.4, which is this high here. And that would allow the market to target the 106 level. So this is on its own is a push of about 8%, which realistically would lift this even more. Like a simple back of the envelope type of analysis would be this. So this is Ethereum from this low to this high, we're up to 33%. Let me see if this is less or more. Should be less. Oh, actually, it's almost the same. All right, so it's question forward here then. This might go up with 8, and reaching here will be the same as for Ethereum, maybe reaching here. Although, if Bitcoin would go up, I would still argue that we'll see Ethereum gain a little bit more because it's a smaller coin with less liquidity than Bitcoin and market cap than Bitcoin. And people are talking about potentially it's time for these altcoins to reemerge. So I still think we can go a bit higher here. So I still think Bitcoin again does 8, and then maybe this does 13, maybe even a bit more. What's your take? Share your comments in the section below.